Before we cross into the unknown, leave a hello in the comments. Even the smallest signal can ripple across galaxies, guiding fellow wanderers to this tale. Let me know you're out there. A voice among the stars, listening with me beyond the veil. Engines roared across the void, their vibration rattling every bulkhead of the flagship Judicator. Commander Kale Varen gripped the console, staring at the holographic projection of the alien capital below. 20 years ago, humanity begged for aid when their worlds burned. Every plea had been met with silence. Now, the very species that had abandoned them trembled, sending desperate transmissions: mercy, surrender, negotiation. Kale's jaw tightened. History had a cruel way of repeating, but this time humanity held the edge, and the edge was unforgiving. The fleet spread into formation, a precision of engineering and human will. Drones buzzed like swarming hornets, scanning for defenses, calculating strike vectors, while the alien capital blinked with futile signals of resistance. Kale's voice broke the silence. No mercy, not now, not ever. In his chest, sorrow warred with fury. Each ship in his armada was a monument to loss, betrayal, and the cold weight of vengeance. Humanity had been abandoned, and now justice would arrive in fire and steel. Kale wandered the bridge, eyes lingering on a display of the dead, names of colonies erased, billions of souls extinguished while allies turned away. The weight of memory pressed on him like a star's gravity. A young lieutenant dared to ask, "Commander, will there be any chance for mercy?" Kale's gaze fell, cold as a vacuum, on the flickering hologram. Mercy is for those who gave it. They didn't. They begged when we burned. Now they'll beg when they face the storm. Outside, fighter squadrons streaked toward orbit, leaving trails of phosphorescent exhaust. Kale felt the bridge tremor as orbital cannons powered up, their hum a promise of annihilation. Reports flickered across his console. Shields weak, population centers vulnerable. His finger hovered over the firing sequence. Memory and anger fused into clarity. The universe had tried to teach humanity humility. Humanity had learned the lesson in blood. Now it would be taught to others. Communications lit up with panicked transmissions. "Please, we yield. Spare us." The alien rulers' voices crackled through interstellar static. Kyle leaned forward, voice steady but dripping ice. "You had 20 years. Your silence killed ours. Today, your screams mean nothing to us." Around him, the crew whispered, some clutching the logs of their lost homes, others simply staring at the unfolding reckoning. Every plea was a reminder of humanity's long wait, the patient vengeance decades in the making. The fleet's sensors picked up evacuation vessels. Too little, too late. Kale's hand tightened on the control rail as a planetary defense grid flared to life, a final, desperate gesture. With a single command, human technology, refined over centuries of survival, slew each defensive satellite with surgical precision. Cities quivered under orbital bombardments. Holographic projections of fleeing civilians flickered in Kale's mind. Sorrow, yes, but fury sharper still. They had abandoned humanity. Humanity would now claim its due, cold and absolute. Kale activated the fleet-wide offensive protocol. Ships accelerated to positions designed to encircle the alien capital like a tightening fist. The bridge hummed with calculated energy. AI-assisted targeting arrays danced across holographic maps. "Every orbit, every quadrant, every exit blocked," Kale murmured. He imagined the alien leaders, pale with fear, realizing their fate. Retribution was not just physical. It was psychological, a long-awaited reckoning. 20 years of waiting had honed humanity's precision, and now nothing would break the circle. The first salvo shattered orbital stations. Plasma arcs danced over the planet's surface like lightning from a storm unchained. Kale watched the destruction unfold with a grim calm. No mercy, he repeated, almost to himself. Memories of abandoned pleas, burning worlds, and the helpless faces of his family flashed with each pulse of energy released. Humanity had learned to survive, adapt, and endure betrayal. Now, Kale realized, vengeance was a heavier burden than sorrow, but necessary. The galaxy had abandoned them once. That mistake will not repeat. Orbital shadows lengthened as the alien capital's defenses crumbled. Kale's fleet moved in flawless synchrony, a testament to human ingenuity. Reports of civilian casualties came in, but Kale felt no hesitation. The weight of decades of loss had distilled into one principle: justice, precise and unyielding. He imagined the aliens' faces pressed against viewports, their screams echoing the pleas humanity once sent into the void. History had reversed, and Kale, as its executor, bore both sorrow and the icy thrill of revenge. From the bridge, Kale surveyed the devastation, the city lights flickering beneath the fires of orbital bombardment. "They will remember this," he said quietly, voice steady but heavy. Around him, human crews felt it too, a mix of mourning and righteous fury. No ally would dare abandon humanity again. No enemy would underestimate them. Kale's hands hovered over the fleet controls, ready for the final strike. Mercy had been denied. History, patience, and vengeance converged in a single, inexorable moment. The galaxy would learn to fear humanity, not for its cruelty but for its endurance. The alien capital trembled under relentless orbital bombardment. Kale's sensors recorded cascading shield failures, each pulse of energy tearing cracks in defenses that had once seemed impregnable. On the bridge, tactical officers barked calculations, plotting vectors around collapsing structures. Kale's eyes were fixed on the holographic city grid. "They thought walls of metal and plasma could keep us out," he muttered, voice tight. "They thought time had softened humanity. They were wrong." A sudden flare on the tactical screen, a counter-strike drone swarm darted from the planet's surface. Fighter squadrons intercepted with surgical precision, tearing through alien drones like paper. Kale's hand hovered over the launch protocols. Each strike was personal, an echo of every colony burned, every plea ignored. Sorrow fused with fury. Humanity had waited 20 years for this moment. The galaxy had abandoned them once, and now the abandoned held the scales. Communications lit up again, this time from the planetary council chambers. "Please, reconsider." The alien voices trembled with desperation. Kyle's gaze swept the fleet before him, the endless vessels a steel tide pressing down from orbit. "You had your chance," he said, low and resonant, his sorrow a weight in the quiet bridge. "We begged, and you watched our worlds burn. You will not see tomorrow." The council's holograms flickered, showing faces twisted in fear and disbelief. Kale allowed himself a pause, imagining the years of terror his people endured, imagining each world abandoned, each child lost. Orders cascaded through the fleet. Orbital cannons tracked moving targets. Missile silos calibrated for precision strikes. There would be no mercy. Vengeance was not loud. It was deliberate, surgical, and inexorably absolute. Humanity would be heard. Humanity would be felt. The planet erupted beneath the first coordinated strikes. Cities melted into rivers of molten metal, defensive satellites exploding like fallen stars. Kale's fleet held formation, each vessel a cog in the engine of inevitable retribution. "Observe and execute," Kale instructed. The bridge crew worked in synchronized rhythm, a dance of destruction choreographed over decades of human ingenuity. Reports poured in, civilian infrastructure collapsing, military installations obliterated, escape vectors blocked. Kale's voice remained steady, almost clinical. "Pain is measured not in screams but in consequence," he said quietly. The fleet's energy resonated like a heartbeat, relentless and measured. Human vengeance was not a blind fury. It was a reckoning. As firestorm after firestorm swept the planet, Kale felt the weight of history settle over him. Heavy, inevitable, righteous. The bridge grew silent as transmission feeds showed fleeing ships cut down mid-escape. Kyle stared at the debris, holographic fragments of alien life drifting in the vacuum. The sorrow was sharp, like shards of glass in his chest, but fury steeled his resolve. He remembered the billions lost when the galaxy looked away, the colonies burned, the helpless faces begging for aid. This was the consequence of abandonment. A junior officer whispered, "Commander, is this necessary?" Kyle's eyes hardened. "Necessity is the child of betrayal," he replied. "We are not the monsters they feared. We are the measure of their mistakes." The fleet adjusted orbit, tightening the stranglehold. Kale's mind replayed the decades of patience, the strategic long game, every calculated maneuver. Humanity was no longer pleading. It was final, decisive, and unrelenting. Mercy had been denied, and every pulse of energy from his armada reinforced that truth. The alien capital's orbit shuddered as Kale's fleet shifted into full assault configuration. Plasma torpedoes arced across the void, converging with surgical timing. On the bridge, every officer felt the weight of inevitability. Kale's gaze swept the tactical display. No escape, no ally, no reprieve. Every action was preordained by history. Every pulse of energy, a memory of humanity's suffering. The stars themselves seemed to shudder in response to the iron tide descending upon the planet. "Target the command nexus," Kale ordered, voice heavy with sorrow and fury. Orbital cannons adjusted, calculating trajectories to ensure maximum precision. Explosions rippled across the surface, the capital's infrastructure collapsing in waves of fire and debris. Kyle allowed himself a moment, closing his eyes, remembering worlds lost and allies who abandoned them. The galaxy would learn, and fear humanity, not for cruelty but for endurance. The edge of vengeance had arrived, and it was merciless. The alien capital's skyline burned like a corpse in sunlight. Kale watched from orbit, the reflection of fire flickering across his visor. Even through centuries of human advancement, the bridge's silence felt heavy. Ships hovered like vultures over a dying world. Every pulse of the fleet's energy echoed the weight of past betrayals. 20 years of waiting culminated in this, history's reckoning written in plasma and metal. Reports flooded in. Collapsed districts, shattered defenses, panic-stricken evacuations. Kale's lips pressed into a thin line. "This is not triumph," he said quietly. "It is a consequence." Around him, human officers absorbed the destruction in measured silence, some whispering names of lost worlds. Sorrow intertwined with fury, a symphony of justice. Humanity's patience had been long, its vengeance meticulous, and the galaxy would witness both. Holographic alerts flashed. Key alien command nodes destroyed. Communications flickered, voices cracking with desperation. "We surrender. Please." Kyle ignored them, fingers resting lightly on the firing console. "You surrendered to history decades ago," he said. "We are merely finishing the lesson." The bridge's hum intensified as orbital strikes tore into remaining military complexes, the calculated precision of humanity's weaponry leaving no escape. A young officer hesitated, voice trembling. "Commander, civilians." Kale's gaze softened, but only briefly. "They had time," he replied. "They watched ours die while their leaders stayed silent. Their fate is entwined with betrayal. Remember it, learn from it, and do not falter." The fleet moved as one, a relentless wave of technological supremacy. Each strike was measured, each calculation honed by decades of survival and memory. Humanity did not revel in this. It was execution, justice, and closure. From orbit, Kale observed the alien elite fleeing to fortified bunkers. Their pride, once untouchable, lay shattered beneath plasma arcs and precise bombardments. Kale's mind wandered briefly to the worlds abandoned 2 decades prior, colonies consumed by fire, cries echoing in his memory. Every maneuver executed now was a tribute to those lost, a response written in fire, steel, and unyielding will. The bunkers, once deemed impregnable, crumbled under coordinated strikes from drones and orbital artillery. Kale's voice was steady, but weighted with memory. They abandoned us. We remember. Each explosion was a sentence in a long-awaited trial of history. Around him, human crews worked with quiet efficiency, their faces a mix of sorrow and grim satisfaction. Revenge was precise, not petty. Humanity would not forget, and the galaxy would not forgive the betrayal. Silence followed the final bombardments, punctuated only by structural collapses and distant fires. Kale's fleet maintained position, ensuring no survivors slipped through orbital shadows. The bridge hummed softly with residual energy. Kale allowed himself a brief, heavy breath. For 20 years, humanity had waited, patient, enduring, and betrayed. Now, the echoes of that abandonment resounded back upon the capital, reshaped into consequence. Holographic feeds showed fragments of alien fleets destroyed, civilian zones devastated, and leadership eliminated. Kale's fingers hovered over the controls but did not move. Mercy had been denied, not in malice, but in principle. Around him, the officers felt it, the bitter, complex satisfaction of justice, intertwined with sorrow. The galaxy would remember humanity's endurance. Betrayal was punished. Silence became a statement louder than words, and Kale, as its executor, bore the weight of history's memory. Kale stared at the fading fires of the alien capital, orbiting silently in the void. The fleet held formation, sensors scanning for hidden survivors. His reflection in the viewport was fractured, overlaid with holographic data of destruction below. The sorrow of lost colonies mixed with the satisfaction of long-awaited vengeance. Time had stretched patience into a weapon, and humanity wielded it with clinical precision. "Status report," Kale said, voice quiet, almost mournful. Officers relayed confirmations. Orbital defenses neutralized, key infrastructure annihilated, no immediate threats. Kale exhaled slowly. The calm was temporary. Reconstruction or further campaigns loomed. Yet, in this moment, he let himself feel the weight of history fulfilled, the heavy satisfaction of patience and principle. The galaxy would learn to respect humanity, not for mercy but for endurance, strategy, and the inevitability of its justice. The alien leaders huddled in underground bunkers, their once commanding voices now hollow whispers. Messages flickered through their shattered comm network. We underestimated. Kale's fleet loomed above, a constellation of cold precision. The weight of their abandonment decades ago had returned as a tidal wave of human wrath. Every flicker on the sensors was a reminder of betrayal turned consequence. Kale's bridge was silent, save for the hum of the engines and the soft beeping of targeting arrays. "History remembers," he murmured, voice tight with emotion. His fingers traced a course across the tactical display, ensuring no escape. The sorrow of lost worlds burned alongside the fury of decades-long vengeance. Humanity did not celebrate this annihilation. They recorded it, measured it, and ensured it was absolute. Alien diplomats attempted to negotiate again, projecting images of their families and pleading for clemency. Kale's eyes narrowed, the weight of memory pressing down. "You turned away while ours burned," he said. "You begged from us in desperation, and we answered with silence, then death. Do you think your displays of fear changed the past?" His voice was steel, threaded with sorrow. Sensors detected escape pods launching, civilian convoys fleeing the orbital devastation. Kale allowed a moment of pause before countermeasures intercepted each attempt with calculated precision. Around him, the bridge crew moved with quiet efficiency. Each pulse of energy, each strike was not rage, it was history's verdict executed in fire and steel. Humanity's patience had been long, its retribution was absolute. Kale stepped to the observation deck, watching the alien cities burn from orbit. His mind drifted to the colonies left to smolder decades ago, to cries lost in the void. Each holographic flash of destruction was a mirror of human suffering returned, refined, and multiplied. They wanted time, Kale whispered. Time was theirs to waste. Now, they pay. The fleet adjusted to tighten the stranglehold, drones scanning for hidden survivors and strategic installations. Every calculation was precise, every strike surgical. Kale's voice broke only once in the quiet hum of the observation deck. We did not choose cruelty. We chose consequence. Around him, humanity's technological supremacy became a monument to endurance and memory, a reminder that betrayal carries a cost measured in fire and silence. Sensors tracked the final orbital defense satellites activating. Kale's eyes narrowed. These were desperate moves, last breaths of pride and resistance. They fight only because they must, he said to the bridge, voice weighted. They have no allies, no reinforcements, only the echo of the past they created. The fleet advanced, a tidal wave of calculated firepower ready to crush any lingering defiance. The first salvo struck, shattering the satellites in synchronized bursts. Alien fighters swarmed but were met with superior maneuvers and cutting-edge weaponry. Kyle watched the precision unfold, a grim calm settling over him. Sorrow and fury intertwined. Every destroyed drone, every fractured satellite was a testament to history remembered, betrayal avenged. Humanity's patience had sculpted vengeance into art, and the galaxy now understood the cost of abandoning Earth. The alien capital lay in ruins, fires flickering beneath orbiting fleets. Transmission feeds were silent, except for fragmented pleas fading into static. Kyle's fleet hovered, scanning, ensuring no escape. The bridge hummed with controlled energy, every system a monument to human endurance. Kyle's reflection overlaid the burning cities, eyes shadowed with memory and resolve. Mercy was denied, he said quietly. History demanded it. The officers absorbed the silence, the aftermath, the weight of the decision. Each crew member understood. This was not triumph, but reckoning. Humanity's patience, honed over decades of betrayal and survival, had culminated in this moment. Kale's hands rested on the rail, knowing the galaxy would remember. Endurance is power, patience is lethal, and humanity forgives only once. The void carried the echoes of vengeance, cold, inevitable, and absolute. The remnants of the alien High Council huddled in underground bunkers, their unity shattered by relentless strikes. Each faction blamed the other for the failure, voices rising in panic and recrimination. Kale's sensors tracked every transmission, every attempted coordination. They crumble under their own fear, he murmured, eyes on the tactical map. This is the consequence of abandoning humanity. Orbital drones swept through the city, neutralizing remaining military nodes. Kale's fleet moved like a predator encircling prey, precise and patient. Around him, officers recorded every collapse, every fracture of alien pride. Sorrow lingered, memory of his own lost colonies, but fury sharpened each maneuver. Humanity had endured betrayal. Now it wielded history itself as a weapon, ensuring no enemy could ever underestimate its patience or resolve. Kyle watched holographic feeds of fleeing alien officials intercepted mid-escape. The cries of panic, transmitted through static-filled channels, echoed on the bridge. "This is not cruelty," Kyle said, voice tight. "This is the weight of history, measured and delivered." 20 years of waiting had honed every tactic, every strike, into precision vengeance. The galaxy would remember the cost of turning away from humanity. Reports of civilian casualties filtered in, and Kyle's gaze hardened. Memories of abandoned colonies flickered in his mind, a ghostly reminder of why restraint had been impossible. The fleet recalibrated to ensure no survivors could regroup. Vengeance was not blind. It was deliberate, precise, and absolute. Humanity's endurance had been tested, and history's ledger demanded payment. Kale bore the weight of both sorrow and satisfaction as the execution unfolded. The alien council's remnants sent fragmented messages of surrender, voices trembling with desperation. Kyle ignored them, eyes fixed on the holographic city grid. "They had 20 years to act," he whispered. "They chose silence. Now, silence answers them." Around him, human officers absorbed the gravity of history played out in fire and steel. Every strike, every orbital maneuver, was a sentence written long before the first shot. Orbital bombardments intensified, disintegrating remaining infrastructure. The alien population, scattered and leaderless, faced the cold calculus of survival, or extinction. Kale's hand hovered above the firing console, a quiet reminder that patience had sharpened vengeance into art. No ally would dare abandon humanity again. No betrayal would go unpunished. Sorrow for the lost mingled with the inexorable clarity of justice delivered with unerring precision. The capital's final defensive satellites fell in coordinated strikes. Kale's fleet maintained orbital dominance, scanning for hidden enclaves. "History demanded clarity," he said softly, voice echoing across the bridge. "We waited. We endured. Now, they will remember what it means to abandon humanity." Officers glanced at him, feeling the weight of that patience, the kind that forged vengeance over decades. As fires consumed the remaining city sectors, Kale allowed himself a moment to remember lost worlds, to honor the colonies left to burn. Then he returned to the bridge, eyes hardening. Vengeance had been measured, precise and unavoidable. Humanity's endurance was a weapon, history its ammunition. The galaxy would learn to fear patience, to respect strategy, and to understand that mercy is not guaranteed, but consequences always are. Kale hovered above the smoldering ruins, the fleet a silent tide of dominance. Holographic feeds displayed every collapsed building, every fleeing survivor intercepted. The galaxy had watched humanity burn. Now it would watch humanity rise. Not as victims, but as arbiters of fate. Kale's voice was low, steady, resonant with sorrow and authority. The past demanded justice. We delivered it. Reports indicated alien leadership fractured, systems offline, morale shattered. Kale allowed himself a measured exhale. Vengeance was complete, but the work of governance and control loomed ahead. The weight of history rested on his shoulders, heavy and unyielding. Humanity would endure, rebuild, and command. The galaxy had learned a lesson in patience, precision, and consequence, lessons etched in fire, steel, and memory. Kale's fleet remained poised, ready to enforce a new order, cold, deliberate, and inevitable. With the alien capital in ruins, Kale's fleet established orbital control, scanning for remaining military installations. Communications flickered with fractured messages of panic and confusion. "They cannot organize," Kale said softly, eyes on the tactical display. "Their leaders abandoned their people, and now the pieces fall apart." Around him, officers noted the meticulous collapse, a testament to human precision and the long memory of betrayal. Drones swept the planet, neutralizing isolated pockets of resistance. Kale's voice broke the silence. "Patience teaches, but it also disciplines. They had decades to prepare for consequences. They chose denial." Humanity's endurance had not only survived abandonment, but now dominated. The bridge hummed with the quiet efficiency of conquest and remembrance, a delicate balance of sorrow, fury, and unyielding authority. Kale reviewed logs of the lost human colonies, each name etched into his mind alongside alien casualties. The sorrow lingered. "Vengeance is not without cost," he murmured. Officers absorbed the gravity of his words, understanding the psychological toll of wielding history as a weapon. Humanity had survived, but at the edge of its own soul. The fleet stabilized, maintaining orbital pressure. Kale contemplated potential survivors. Would mercy now serve as a lesson, or would it undo the clarity of consequence? His hands hovered over controls, indecision brief but heavy. The galaxy had abandoned humanity once. Kale's challenge was now to forge an era where such betrayal would never recur, balancing retribution with the future of diplomacy and governance. Small alien enclaves attempted contact, projecting holographic images of families and cities spared. Kale listened, absorbing every plea. Sorrow flickered in his gaze. "They show fear, not understanding," he murmured. "They confuse survival with absolution. History does not forgive negligence. Humanity remembers." His officers waited, silent, knowing the answer before it left his lips. Orders were issued to secure the remaining territories, emphasizing control over mercy. Kale's mind drifted briefly to Earth's lost colonies, imagining their cries mirrored in the alien messages. Humanity had endured betrayal for decades. Its patience had hardened into a tool of governance and justice. Mercy could wait. First, the galaxy must comprehend the consequences of abandoning Earth. Every act, every strike, every pause reinforced that lesson. Scattered alien forces attempted to regroup in underground bunkers. Kale's fleet adjusted positions, deploying drones with surgical precision. "Resistance is futile," he said, voice steady but heavy. "They fought with pride, but pride without wisdom is meaningless." The holographic feeds displayed explosions consuming bunkers and defensive installations, the remnants of defiance swiftly extinguished. Officers watched silently as the alien populations fractured further. Leadership was eliminated, or they fled. Kale's thoughts returned to the years humanity had endured, the abandoned colonies, and the persistent silence of allies. The weight of history bore down on him. Vengeance had been delivered, but its psychological toll lingered. Humanity had won, yet the bridge carried the ghosts of sorrow, sacrifice, and the exacting precision of justice. The alien capital lay in complete ruin, its survivors scattered and leaderless. Kale's fleet maintained orbit, drones patrolling and monitoring, ensuring order. He gazed at the holographic map of devastation, each destroyed installation a reminder of history's unyielding verdict. "We are not merciless," he said, quiet but resolute. "We are precise. We are remembered." On the bridge, officers felt the tension lift slightly, replaced by the heavy satisfaction of control and consequence. Kale's reflection mirrored the flames of the planet below. Sorrow, fury, and the weight of authority intertwined. Humanity's patience had reshaped the galaxy. Mercy could come later, as education, not impulse. First, the cost of betrayal had been engraved into history, and Kale, burdened and resolute, ensured the lesson would never be forgotten. Kale's fleet hovered over the shattered alien capital, drones sweeping the ruins for signs of life. A holographic report indicated fractured governance, systems offline, and no organized opposition. "Authority must be rebuilt," Kale said softly, voice carrying both sorrow and determination. Humanity had enforced consequence. Now it must guide the remnants. Officers recorded every structural weakness, every failing network. Kale's mind flickered to Earth's abandoned colonies, lessons of history etched in blood and fire. Mercy could be calculated, governance enforced, but only after the galaxy had learned the cost of betrayal. Humanity's patience had forged both weapon and teacher, and Kale bore the burden of wielding both. Alien leaders, scattered and fearful, submitted to human oversight. Kale convened a council aboard the Judicator. "You failed your people once," he said, voice quiet but cutting. "Do not fail them again. Humanity forgives in measure, but history never forgets." Faces flickered across the holograms, some pleading, others trembling, all haunted by decades of their own failure. The bridge hummed with controlled energy. The fleet a silent enforcer of justice and education. Kale's officers absorbed the lessons embedded in his words: patience, memory, and measured dominance. Humanity had endured abandonment and betrayal, and now the galaxy would learn restraint through fear and respect. Each act of oversight reinforced a lesson decades in the making. Even amidst reconstruction, whispers of resistance emerged. Small factions tried to rally survivors, projecting encrypted messages into the void. Kale's sensors intercepted each one. "They cannot unlearn consequence," he murmured, "but they can remember it, and we must ensure the lesson endures." His hand hovered over tactical controls, ready for surgical intervention if necessary. Officers compiled intelligence, noting each potential hotspot. Kale's gaze drifted briefly to his lost colonies, memories of fire and screams sharpening his resolve. Humanity had wielded patience and vengeance in tandem. Now it must wield governance and surveillance. Every action, every intervention would be precise, calculated, and unyielding. Mercy could exist, but only within parameters dictated by the memory of betrayal. Kale walked the observation deck, watching the alien cities begin tentative reconstruction under human oversight. Fires had faded, but scars remained. "We saved nothing from the past," he whispered, voice heavy, "except memory and consequence." Officers followed silently, sensing the bridge commander's inner turmoil, a mix of sorrow for the lost, fury for betrayal, and pride in endurance. Reports indicated tentative compliance, but Kale's mind lingered on the subtle unrest in underground networks. Even in victory, the weight of history was a burden. Humanity's endurance had won battles, but governance demanded vigilance. Every flicker of defiance reminded him that mercy and control were intertwined, delicate, and the most dangerous tests often lay in what survivors chose to remember. Holographic displays lit the bridge with images of alien survivors rebuilding under human supervision. Kale's gaze lingered on the broken monuments of the past, cities flattened, families scattered, and leaders deposed. "Every ember of their past fuels our lesson," he said quietly. Around him, officers absorbed the gravity of restraint after vengeance, understanding that patience was both weapon and burden. Intelligence reports noted minor uprisings, small groups testing boundaries, probing weaknesses. Kyle's lips pressed into a thin line. History had demanded justice. Humanity had delivered. Now it demanded vigilance. His fleet remained poised, silent and unyielding, a shadow over the galaxy reminding all. Endurance is power, patience is lethal, and the cost of abandonment is etched in fire and memory. Encrypted transmissions whispered across the ruins of the alien capital. Small factions tested human oversight, probing for weaknesses. Kyle leaned over the tactical console, reading each intercepted message. "Even after everything, they hope," he murmured. His voice carried the weight of memory. Decades of betrayal, colonies lost, voices abandoned. Every flicker of resistance was a reminder of what humanity had endured. The fleet adjusted patrol patterns, drones slicing through potential hideouts. Kale's officers executed precision interventions, quelling unrest without unnecessary destruction. Fury tempered with calculation. Humanity had waited decades for retribution. Now, patience became enforcement. Each move reinforced the lesson. Betrayal carries a price, endurance demands respect, and resistance without foresight is doomed. Kale walked the observation deck, staring at holographic feeds of reconstruction below. Civilians worked under watchful drones, and rebel cells scuttled through shadows. His reflection was layered with memory: lost colonies, abandoned pleas, and silent suffering. Vengeance was easy, he whispered. Dominion is heavier. Officers sensed the bridge commander's turmoil, a blend of sorrow for the past and the burden of ensuring the future. Sensors tracked subtle movements, signals bouncing off abandoned networks. Kale issued calculated directives to prevent escalation. Mercy could exist only under strict observation. Humanity's endurance had forged power, but that power required careful wielding. Each action, each intervention became a lesson etched in fire, memory, and consequence. The galaxy was learning, slowly, painfully, irrevocably. Reports indicated small uprisings in peripheral sectors, scattered, uncoordinated, but persistent. Kyle's fingers traced the tactical map, eyes narrowing. "They are veins of rebellion," he said softly. "They flow with hope, but lack direction. We must control the current before it becomes a flood." Around him, officers noted the precision required. Every strike, every patrol, a balance between deterrence and overreach. The fleet shifted into tighter formations, drones scanning orbital shadows. Kale's mind lingered on Earth's abandoned colonies, imagining the helplessness his people endured. Fury coexisted with vigilance. Sorrow tempered his commands. Enforcement was not cruelty. It was education through consequence. Humanity had survived betrayal and now shaped history, ensuring every act of defiance would be met with a calculated response. Kale stood alone on the observation deck, gazing at the alien world below. Smoke still rose from collapsed districts, but reconstruction moved forward. His mind replayed the decades of abandonment, of pleading to allies who turned away. "History weighs heavily," he murmured, "and those who ignore it are doomed to feel its weight." The bridge was quiet, the hum of the fleet a reminder of both power and responsibility. Reports filtered in, small uprisings quelled, leaders submitting, systems stabilizing. Kale's hand rested on the console, reflecting on the delicate balance between mercy and dominance. Humanity's patience had been tested and tempered into precision. Every decision carried moral weight. Every strike was a reminder that endurance is both a weapon and a burden. The galaxy would remember Earth's lessons, not as fury alone, but as a testament to survival, patience, and unflinching resolve. The fleet maintained orbit, a silent shadow over the recovering capital. Kale's eyes scanned the city below, noting small pockets of resistance fading under calculated oversight. "Control is earned," he said quietly. "Not demanded, not feared. It must be remembered." Officers moved efficiently, reinforcing patrols and surveillance, balancing enforcement with the optics of mercy. Kale's reflection overlapped the fires of old destruction, the memories of human loss and betrayal ever present. Fury had been the first tool. Patience became the second. Humanity had reshaped the galaxy's perception of endurance and consequence. Mercy would be measured, control deliberate, and resistance fleeting. In the silence of orbit, Kale bore the weight of history, justice, and the slow, unyielding consolidation of dominance. Kale convened a council aboard the Judicator, addressing alien leaders under strict supervision. "Your failures shaped this outcome," he said, voice calm but heavy. "Now you will learn to govern with guidance, or history will repeat itself." The leaders flinched, aware their pride had been shattered and that humanity's endurance was now the final arbiter. Officers coordinated reconstruction initiatives, integrating alien bureaucracies into human oversight. Kale's mind lingered on the fine line between education and domination. Fury had tempered into vigilance, sorrow into measured judgment. The galaxy was learning. Betrayal carries consequences, endurance is power, and leadership is both privilege and responsibility under humanity's watchful eyes. Tentative agreements were formed with alien leaders, yet mistrust lingered like a shadow across the council chambers. Kale observed the hesitation, the subtle defiance hidden behind polite words. "Trust is earned," he murmured, voice layered with sorrow and resolve. "You squandered it once. Do not test patience again." The fleet maintained orbit, a silent sentinel. Kale issued careful monitoring protocols, balancing enforcement with diplomacy. The galaxy had witnessed the consequences of abandoning humanity. Now, endurance became a tool of governance and patience a weapon of influence. Kale understood the delicate art of control, measured authority enforced by memory, precision, and relentless vigilance. Small rebellions persisted in peripheral sectors, minor but persistent. Kale's tactical team intercepted encrypted signals and coordinated interventions. "Compliance is not fear," Kale said quietly. "It is understanding the consequence. They will remember." His voice carried the weight of centuries of human survival, betrayal, and the patience forged in fire. Orbital drones mapped hidden networks, while reconstruction crews reinforced controlled zones. Kale's officers executed orders with precision, reinforcing the lesson of consequence. Humanity had endured abandonment. Now it was shaping the galaxy with patience, endurance, and calculated oversight. Every act of obedience or defiance became data, every outcome a reminder that mercy is measured and power is patient. Kyle walked the observation deck, eyes on holographic feeds of cities slowly rebuilding. Smoke lingered in the streets, citizens moving cautiously under drone supervision. "Mercy without memory is meaningless," he murmured. Officers noted his tone, understanding the psychological burden of wielding absolute authority tempered with patience. Reports detailed minor uprisings suppressed and leadership compliance verified. Kale's mind recalled lost colonies, the cries of the abandoned, and the pleas ignored by allies decades ago. Fury and sorrow intertwined with responsibility. Endurance had won battles, but governance required vigilance. The galaxy was learning that betrayal carries a cost, patience wields power, and humanity never forgets. The alien populations moved under careful guidance, rebuilding under human oversight. Kyle reviewed logs, noting progress and subtle defiance alike. "Peace is heavier than war," he said softly. "It demands vigilance, memory, and the restraint to guide without destroying." Officers watched, sensing the bridge commander's internal struggle between compassion and duty. Drones patrolled orbital shadows, reinforcing compliance while avoiding unnecessary destruction. Kale allowed himself a brief, quiet reflection. Vengeance had been delivered, control established, but the weight of oversight remained. Humanity's endurance had reshaped the galaxy. Every act of mercy, every intervention, was a lesson etched in fire, memory, and authority. The burden of peace, heavier than any weapon, rested squarely on his shoulders. Kale watched holographic feeds of alien leaders implementing human directives. Mistakes were corrected immediately, lessons reinforced through observation and controlled intervention. "They will remember," he murmured. The silence of the bridge was heavy, each officer aware of the weight of shaping a civilization's memory through consequence. Drones monitored rebuilding zones, recording compliance and subtle defiance alike. Kale's mind traced back to Earth's abandoned colonies, to the cries of the helpless and the silence of allies. Fury had transformed into governance, sorrow into careful oversight. Humanity's patience, honed over decades, became both shield and scalpel, teaching endurance and the price of betrayal simultaneously. Whispers of underground resistance persisted. Kale intercepted transmissions, noting tactics and hidden safe zones. "They test the boundaries," he said quietly. "We must guide without crushing potential, or memory becomes meaningless." His reflection overlaid the holographic city, a reminder of the balance between authority and restraint. The fleet adjusted patrols, drones sweeping orbital shadows, while reconstruction crews continued their work. Kale's officers executed commands with precision, aware that patience and vigilance were as lethal as plasma arcs. Humanity's endurance had been forged in fire, betrayal had been repaid, and now control would teach subtle lessons, instilling caution, respect, and understanding of consequence. Kale reviewed records of alien compliance and rebellion. Faces of past colonies flashed in his memory, ghostly reminders of lives lost, worlds abandoned. "Every choice leaves a mark," he whispered. Fury had sculpted justice. Patience now sculpted governance. Officers noted the quiet solemnity in his tone, understanding that leadership weighed heavier than conquest. Reports detailed reconstruction, minor compliance issues, and successful integration of governance networks. Kale reflected on humanity's endurance, the capacity to survive betrayal, deliver consequence, and now oversee order. The galaxy's memory would be shaped not just by vengeance, but by the careful, deliberate imposition of human will, tempered with insight and the ever-present shadow of history. Resistance factions attempted covert operations, testing human oversight. Kyle's tactical team intercepted signals, mapping networks and predicting movements. "Hope persists," Kyle murmured, voice tight with memory and caution. Officers sensed the tension. Patience had delivered victory, but vigilance ensured survival. Every flicker of defiance required a measured response, balancing authority with restraint. Orbital drones and enforcement patrols moved with precision, neutralizing threats without unnecessary destruction. Kyle's reflection lingered on lost worlds, the cries of abandoned colonies, and the moral cost of absolute oversight. Humanity had endured betrayal, delivered retribution, and now bore the weight of teaching the galaxy endurance, consequence, and the careful exercise of power. Kale stood on the observation deck, overlooking reconstructed sectors. Fires had faded, streets were cautiously active, and governance networks hummed under human oversight. "Vengeance is complete," he whispered, "but peace demands patience, memory, and vigilance." Officers absorbed the weight of his reflection, sensing both triumph and the burden of moral responsibility. Drones patrolled orbital shadows, reinforcing compliance while respecting the boundaries of control. Kyle's thoughts traced decades of endurance and loss, betrayal and response. Humanity had reshaped the galaxy, teaching the cost of abandoning Earth. Now, the lesson extended into governance, memory, and subtle moral oversight. The bridge was silent, save for the hum of ships and the echo of consequence etched in fire, steel, and memory. Kale observed alien cities cautiously adapting to human oversight. Markets reopened, children played under watchful drones, and leaders implemented directives with hesitant efficiency. "They bend, but they remember," he murmured. Officers recorded patterns, noting both compliance and subtle cultural resistance. Humanity's lesson had reached beyond mere obedience. It had begun to reshape thought and tradition. Holographic feeds showed art, ritual, and commerce continuing in controlled spaces. Kale's mind lingered on his own people's endurance. The colonies lost to betrayal. Fury had delivered justice. Patience now fostered adaptation. Humanity's hand guided, but the weight of observation reminded all that freedom had limits when history demanded vigilance. Encrypted transmissions revealed hidden dissent among alien officials. Kale leaned over tactical displays, reading subtle signs of unrest. "Even in victory, tension thrives," he whispered. His eyes flicked to the fleet, an ever-present reminder of consequence. Officers felt the weight of silence, the understanding that governance required constant attention, subtlety, and moral vigilance. Drones swept city sectors, monitoring interactions, while human advisors integrated alien leaders into new structures. Kale's reflection traced decades of patience, betrayal, and retribution. Humanity's endurance had reshaped the galaxy, yet the burden of oversight remained, each decision a test of ethics, power, and the fine balance between mercy and control. Kale convened a session with alien governors, discussing infrastructure, education, and compliance. "History is a teacher," he said. "Your people will remember both failure and guidance. Do not repeat mistakes." Holographic maps displayed zones of reconstruction, compliance data, and subtle unrest. Officers noted the deliberate tone, vigilance tempered with opportunity, consequence balanced by structured mercy. Reconstruction crews repaired districts while drones ensured order. Kale's gaze lingered on reports of cultural preservation, noting minor adjustments by alien leaders. Humanity had survived betrayal, delivered retribution, and now enforced the architecture of endurance. Every action reinforced the cost of abandonment, every directive a subtle imprint of human morality and authority. Small underground factions attempted clandestine sabotage, testing human oversight. Kale's sensors detected every movement, every encrypted message. "They push boundaries," he murmured, "but memory guides them and consequence awaits." Officers coordinated targeted interventions, precise, measured, and merciful enough to teach without annihilation. The fleet adjusted orbital patrols, drones weaving invisible webs of control. Kale's mind lingered on the balance between power and ethical responsibility. Humanity had endured betrayal and wielded vengeance. Now, governance demanded foresight, subtlety, and restraint. Every flicker of dissent became a lesson, every intervention a testament to patience honed into authority. Kale stood alone on the observation deck, watching alien cities slowly stabilize. Fires had faded, markets thrived, and education programs began under human supervision. Yet he saw the shadows, small, quiet, defiant pockets reminding him that patience alone did not guarantee loyalty. "Vigilance is eternal," he whispered. The fleet maintained orbit, drones patrolling silently. Kale's reflection merged with the holographic city, layered with sorrow, fury, and measured authority. Humanity's endurance had reshaped the galaxy, but the moral burden remained. Every choice carried consequences. Every act of oversight weighed on history, and every flicker of rebellion reminded him that absolute control demanded vigilance, patience, and unyielding resolve. Small insurgent groups persisted in shadowed sectors, but their numbers dwindled. Kale's fleet tightened orbital control, drones scanning for hidden networks. "Even the smallest fracture reminds us of history," he said softly. Officers coordinated strategic interventions, precise and measured, ensuring rebellion could never spread. Reports detailed isolated compliance and the final dismantling of clandestine operations. Kale's mind traced decades of patience, betrayal, and calculated vengeance. Humanity had endured abandonment, exacted retribution, and now ensured stability. The galaxy would remember not only the price of betrayal but the weight of governance tempered by history, memory, and unwavering vigilance. Alien leadership had fully submitted to human guidance, reconstructing infrastructure and adhering to oversight protocols. Kale reviewed holographic feeds, noting progress and compliance. "Order is fragile," he murmured. "It must be protected, nurtured, and remembered." The bridge remained quiet, officers acutely aware of the precision and moral weight required. Orbital drones patrolled silently, reinforcing enforcement while avoiding unnecessary confrontation. Humanity's endurance had reshaped entire worlds, turning vengeance into structured authority. Kale allowed himself a fleeting reflection. The galaxy now understood the cost of abandoning humanity. Every act of obedience or defiance carried memory, teaching, and consequence. Kale stood on the observation deck, staring at the alien cities below. Fires had faded, streets thrived cautiously, and leaders moved with deliberate care. "Vengeance is done," he whispered. "Control endures. History watches." Officers sensed the psychological weight pressing on their commander. Decades of sorrow, fury, and responsibility condensed into this quiet moment. Sensors reported near-total compliance, minor dissent extinguished. Cale's mind traced lost colonies and abandoned cries, each memory a shadow upon his thoughts. Humanity had enforced justice, taught endurance, and now bore the weight of moral authority. Every decision reinforced the balance between mercy, power, and consequence, a legacy etched in fire, steel, and memory. Encrypted transmissions flickered, remnants of old resistance. Cale intercepted and neutralized them, but allowed some minor dissent as a reminder to the galaxy. "Memory guides them," he said quietly. "Without memory, mercy is meaningless. Without consequence, hope is empty." His reflection overlaid the holographic cities, a juxtaposition of calm, order, and vigilance. The fleet maintained a silent orbit, drones patrolling with precision. Cale's officers noted the subtle balance, enforcement without cruelty, oversight without oppression. Humanity's endurance had survived betrayal, exacted vengeance, and now sculpted civilization. Every action, every intervention, carried the psychological weight of history, ensuring the galaxy would remember Earth's lessons for generations. Cale stood alone on the observation deck as the alien world settled into quiet compliance. Holographic feeds showed thriving sectors, reconstructed governance, and cautious citizens. He exhaled slowly, reflecting on decades of patience, betrayal, retribution, and oversight. "History remembers all," he whispered. Fury had delivered justice. Endurance had delivered governance. The fleet's engines hummed, a constant reminder of authority and consequence. Humanity had endured the worst abandonment, wielded vengeance with precision, and now guided the galaxy with measured oversight. The bridge fell silent, carrying the weight of morality, memory, and legacy. Cale's reflection merged with the flickering lights below. Sorrow, fury, and patience etched into the fabric of history, unyielding and eternal. The end. Thank you for watching AstroMyths. If you enjoyed this story, smash that like button and subscribe for more epic sci-fi tales, cosmic mysteries, and mind-bending myths. And if you like this story, or have a myth, mystery, or galaxy you'd like us to explore, drop your ideas in the comments. We're always listening. Until next time, keep your eyes on the stars and your mind open to the unknown.